You are listening to the Let's Chat Soon podcast. We are so excited that you are embarking on this journey with us. Let's Chat Soon is a space where we chat all things body, soul, and spirit, and how when you align all three, you unlock a full life. A healthy you is the best gift you can give to grow the kingdom and to those you love. Welcome back to this week's episode. I'm your host, Alexis.
And I'm Mackenzie, and welcome to the new year.
The new year.
Well, it's the 31st technically when this episode will be airing, but we're almost to 2025.
It's crazy. It approached so fast for me, and I'm fine with it though. Like, I need it to be a new year.
I'm genuinely so excited. I'm so excited for New Year's.
Me too.
I need like a clean break. If you've listened to any of our past couple episodes, you know we are ready to leave the old behind and move on to the new.
Yeah. Total rebrand. I keep seeing those videos pop up on my TikTok For You page where it's like rebranding with my bestie, like literally taking this whole year and deciding who we're going to be.
And that will probably be next week's episode. We'll probably talk a lot about like what we want out of 2025, what 2025 is going to look like going forward.
Yeah.
Whereas this episode, we just want to reflect, which honestly feels pretty challenging to us. I'm going to be honest, to sit down and reflect over this past year and not just focus on the last month that has been literally tragic for the both of us.
Yeah. I had to really go honestly through like my camera roll of the whole year and kind of remember other events, because I feel like all that's in my mind right now is just kind of like the past month, honestly, the past few weeks. And it's hard to get out of that mindset, but I had to like actually go and see like, okay, I did all these things. I learned all these lessons, and this is all that I could be grateful for in the new year.
Right, exactly. So during today's episode, I've done this in years past when I was on Jesus People Places podcast, where we're doing 24 things that we learned in 2024.
Yeah. I'm excited.
I am excited too. Do you want to go ahead and start us up?
I will start us up. So I think the theme, honestly, that I'm bringing into the new year that I've learned in 2024 is slowing down is truly a non-negotiable. I have shared how have been going through this health journey, and it's been a very long process of healing my skin and healing my body. And the biggest thing that's moved the needle, and the biggest thing I'm still focusing on, is regulating my stress and regulating my nervous system. And unfortunately, I always have said, like, I strive in chaos. Like, I just love jumping from one thing to the next. And my body does not. It's just my personality. I recently did a bunch of personality tests with my doctors. And it was really cool because I'm like, okay, that validated like who I am. Like, I love it. I can take the strong points, but also I can focus on my weaknesses, and that being slowing down. So I think in this year, I've really learned that that is truly important, and I have to learn to rest, and I'm going to continue working on that in the new year.
And when you actually do health studies and like look at what rest does, it makes such a difference. And it's like we do all these, I just saw a video that was like, we'll get an ice baths for our health, we'll do this for our health, but we won't get 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah, we won't sit in silence with our own thoughts.
Sitting in silence is something like as I was driving here today, I was like, I need to do that a little more in processing this whole breakup too. I'm like, I need to just sit with myself and like learn what that looks like and what I actually think, because I'm such the kind of person who likes to debrief with people. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. And now I'm getting like other people's thoughts and opinions. And I'm like, just kidding. I think I need to sit with myself for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Rest was also one of the things I learned too. Literally my top one was rest is productive. And I totally knew this was going to happen. Go figure.
We might align on a lot of these, but yeah, I just think that's truly the biggest thing that I've learned the whole year and bringing forward.
So my second, which is our third thing, I guess, from this year that we learned, is people show love in different ways, and understanding this helps foster like deeper connections with one another. And I feel like this is something so hard to learn. And through like the Love Languages book, which is such a great book, I've really learned that I show love in different ways. I receive love in different ways. And so do other people. Yeah. Which I wish everyone could just show love in the way that I show love. But I think when you understand like, oh, that person shows love through words of affirmation, the words mean a lot more when they come from them.
Yeah. No, that's very true. It's about receiving them in the way that you need to be received, and also knowing the other people in your life, how they need to be received, and changing your dynamic to fit theirs as well.
I learned this the other way too. When I would do acts of service for other people, I just wanted people to understand that I was doing it out of love, not because I like needed them to recognize it or anything, but I was like, please let me do this. Like, please let me, I keep going back to pick me up from the airport, but please let me pick you up from the airport because I love you and I want to show love to you in that way. And I wish certain times I'm like, okay, I know you don't need me to do that, but I wish you would just take this and understand this as like a way of showing love.
Yeah. And it fills your cup too. We've talked about that before, but sometimes you need to show how you love that person because it's also something that we're internally doing for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
What's your second?
My second, which is number 4, is collaboration over competition, which is like kind of opposite maybe of that. But basically, I think I've always been someone who's like, I can do it myself, and just like have gone down this path of like trying everything, but trying it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, like through this podcast, I've learned like you are going to hit milestones and things you can't even imagine with other people's brain power, just like point blank simple. And there's so many beautiful things. Like we've had a lot of different opportunities even just come up within the past week
is crazy,
which is wild. And it just makes me realize like I don't need to do all these big things on my own. I think it came from like this internal thing that almost like an ego, like I needed to have my name stamped on something. And like, I did this, like everyone, like look at me. And I'm kind of just like turning that over and being like, no, like look what we did, look what we are creating. Right. And there's just so much power and like the collaboration part of it. And yeah, it's just like a big thing I've learned this year.
I work so much better when I'm working with other people. That would have been one of the things on my list last year. I did so many things alone, and I was like building what was Jesus People Places, and I was like, I literally can't do this. Hence why I was like, hey girl, I need some help. Like, please join this podcast.
It makes it so much more fun.
So
much more fun. I can't even imagine doing this podcast without you. Like,
no.
It probably, I would be that percentage where I do 2 podcast episodes and it falls off.
Oh, especially this last week and a half, we would have, if we did not have to hold each other accountable to show up here every single week, we wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. And when you are in collaboration with people, when you are going through bad things, like this is the only thing that's honestly carried me through, like gotten me out of bed, gotten me to eat food so I can have the brain power to podcast. Like it's the simple needs that I need to function right now. I've only truly done because I'm in a collaboration with somebody else.
Kind of going in line with that, I guess, would be my third and our 5th piece of advice that we learned this year is consistency always wins.
Yeah, that's something I need constant reminder of.
We were just talking about this with wanting to do like daily reels, being like, okay, we do it for like a day and then we're like, oh, it didn't succeed. Like, I'm going to stop doing it. Showing up week after week is the key to long-term success. Like, we've come back to the point that Lauren Bostic said of get to the 200 episodes. Don't count your wins or losses until you get to that 200 mark. And we're like, all right, we're going to sit down week after week and commit to this week after week, whether we feel like it or don't. And lately, we have not felt like it at all, not even a little bit, but we've still showed up. And I think that's so big in social media too. I know there's so many people who are wanting to grow their social media platforms and things like that. Consistency.
It boils down to that. Literally, I have had the pleasure of like talking to some really cool, successful people through what I do for work. And I try to get every like little tidbit I can from them. Like I'll talk to them during our appointments together. And I'm like, what is your biggest piece of advice that has made you the person you are today? Like, you obviously are successful. How did you get there? And every single person has said focus, which is consistency on the same thing. Like, it just has to be done.
Yeah.
I love that one. That is one I'm going to take into the new year to master. So my number 6 is remembering who you are and keeping people in your life that remind you of that. I was sobbing last night because I was watching birth videos. I was like, what if I never get to have kids? I'm so sad. Literally, I'm like, what if I never get that feeling? Like, I need that. And so I had sent a message to my friend and they're like, call me immediately. He gets on the phone. He's like, do you know who you are? And just like put me in check. And I'm like, that's exactly what I needed. Like, sometimes I just need the validation and I need people in my corner that are going to listen to me sob, take the space, hold the space for me to do that, agree, and then be like, okay, now switch back. Like, who are you again? I need more of that in 2025.
Yep. I had the exact same thing happen last night through like guy family friends. They're like, do they realize who you are?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Pull yourself out of this. Do you know who you are? Let me remind you of who you are. It makes such a difference. And I think that is like one of the biggest reasons, like Christianity and my faith has been such a thing to go back to, being like, okay, I have my identity rooted in this, but having people surrounding you who can root your identity back in that too is huge.
So huge. Love it.
Mine kind of is in line with that. I feel like our brains worked in the exact same
I
way.
know.
It's not even like we're running through lists on our individual screens and not necessarily being like, okay, that one goes hand in hand with this one. We
didn't even line them up at all.
No, literally not at all. But my fourth one is have a mission statement, always go back to it, which I feel like goes in line with that. I went to a businessy class, 5 or 6 years ago, and they made us write a mission statement for our life. And then I went and studied abroad, and I went on like a leadership study abroad type of thing, and they made us write a mission statement as well. And I've always kind of come back to, you can have a life mission statement. Like, yes, you're building a business, but you're also building a brand for yourself. And like, whether you have an audience on social media or not, like, your life is a brand, no matter which way you spin it, whether you're building a business, whether you're just operating on a day-to-day life, you need to have a mission statement for your life. And
absolutely. I agree. We should do a whole podcast episode on that because I am part of like a business mindset group, essentially. And that's the first thing they made us do was like write out your mission statement because that's your purpose in life. Like that is your why. That's when you don't want to be consistent. You're going to go back to that purpose and it's going to make you be consistent. I love that. That's like my favorite thing ever. I could go on tangents all day long.
We really should do an episode about that because it's sometimes hard to know what should I pull for my mission statement? What should I do? What should I say? But again, it is what you're going to continue to root yourself in and you're going to come back to it. And when you're not working in alignment with your mission statement, it's very easy to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to accept this collaboration. I'm not going to accept this business deal. I'm not going to do this thing because it doesn't align with my mission statement. Yeah,
it takes out the decisiveness. I also was on a call last week and they were talking about the why, I don't know what it is, like a project or whatever. And basically you say something out loud that you want, like, I want to make 10K this month. And then you ask yourself why 7 times. So you're like, why do I want to make 10K? Because I want to be able to travel this month. Why do I want to travel this month? Because I want to have new experiences. Why do I want to have new experiences? And you keep asking yourself until you get to the root cause of like your why. And so it's not just something, it's like the why you want that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. We should totally do that.
We need to do that.
As an episode with a new year too.
Yeah, for sure. I love that.
Interesting. Are you up or am I?
I think I'm up. I think this is number 8 and it would be control the controllables. My mom always says this to me and I can like hear her voice when I say it out loud, but it's so true. There are so many aspects of life that simply is out of your control. You can't do anything to change the outcome of it, but you can control how you react and how you go forward with what's been presented to you and control your emotions, control how you treat people. And that's just all that matters because it's life. Things are going to happen that we don't want to happen. But at the end of the day, you can control the controllables. I literally have this on a sticky note, like everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I need to be reminded this. If I feel sad, I can control my emotion and I can't control what's making me sad, but I can control how I'm reacting to it.
Right. I have nothing to add to that. That's just great. Like that can be applied and taken in so many different aspects of life. My next one is knowing what you want in life can be intimidating to others. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you.
Good. That's good.
This is one I learned literally this week. Like genuinely this week. I think I've had so many friends now tell me like, well, Mackenzie, you just know exactly what you want in life and that's intimidating. And I've been on this like push-pull with myself the past couple weeks of like, oh, well, is that a bad thing? Does that mean I'm like being too hard on people? Does that mean XYZ? But I kind of realized it's not even something I say, but it's the way I carry myself. And then I kind of looked at a lot of my friendships surrounding me and I'm like, okay, well, am I affecting those friendships negatively? Because obviously this stems from like relationship breakups, whatever. I look at all the people in my life and I'm like, well, a lot of my friends have started businesses, have gone out on their own. And I'm not saying that's due to me, but I am saying like, I know what I want in life and I hold that standard. And I feel like I'm not directly holding other people to it, but because they're around me, they feel like they also can like step up to that.
Yeah, it's important.
So people either around me feel like they need to step up or they kind of run away.
Yeah, which is good because people always say like, look at the 5 people around you. And if they're constantly bringing you down, you need to reassess. And so if you're having 5 people that are also doing the same thing for you, like that's so important.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like people would kind of take that out of context to be like, oh, well, you're only friends with people who like have successful businesses or do this or do whatever. My 5 closest friends 2 years ago, which granted, they're still relatively the same 5 closest people. We're dead broke. We were traveling on a budget. We were traveling with no money whatsoever. We had dreams of starting businesses. They were not even relatively happening at that time. And now my best friend runs like the most successful photography business. And I'm like, oh yeah, 2 years ago when we met, you couldn't pick up your camera.
Yeah.
Okay, like we've grown together, and that's what I want out of a relationship. I don't need you to come in and literally be perfect, because I am not perfect whatsoever, but I do want you to be inspired by me instead of thinking that my high standard that I hold myself to and keep myself to is something to be intimidated of.
Yeah. I don't want to be friends with people who don't have any ideas or passions in life.
Or drive, or
Yeah.
or unsure about what they want in life to the point where they just don't move.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know what you want in life, me too. Okay. I'm certified as a travel agent because I thought maybe I want that out of life. I've done that like once. I am now back in school to be a health coach because I think maybe I want that out of life. I have no idea what I want out of life, truly. Like I am confident in the fact that I'm going to try every single thing until something works.
It's the action steps. Yeah.
And there's so many people who aren't taking action, and I don't want those people in my life. Sorry.
Preach. I agree, girl. My number 10, we're on?
I think so. Yeah. Yep.
So this is something I'm still learning. I feel like a lot of these, I'm like, all right, I'm still learning this. I'm not a master at any of them, but someone being selfish doesn't necessarily mean they are trying to hurt you. And what I mean by that is like, you don't have to play the victim in every scenario. Like, I feel like my first response when somebody does something that hurt me is, oh my gosh, they're out to get me. They hate me. What's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? Why are they doing this? And it's like, people at the end of the day are selfish. I'm selfish sometimes. I do things because I want to, and I'm not thinking about the other person. That doesn't mean I'm like deliberately going out and trying to hurt them. And so I feel like sometimes we just got to step back and be like, it's really not that serious. It's really not that deep. They're not trying to destroy my life. And that's all. That's all.
I'm going to pull my number 6 / our number 11, which is every time you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And I feel like that goes very in line with that, because I've been on the other end of that, being like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm hurting this person's feelings by saying no. I feel bad. I'm not showing up. I'm not doing this. But it's also the reality of I can't show up for every single person 100% of the time.
No.
It's not practical in order to do. Like sometimes I do have to say no in order to say yes to something else. And sometimes that yes is me. And that does seem selfish sometimes. And I'm like, oh, I'm not deliberately trying to hurt them by not being there.
Exactly.
But I need to go fill my cup up in another area.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is hard to realize too.
It is hard to realize. And we're like creatures of just consuming ourselves with our own thoughts. And like, it's hard to think about how other people are viewing it. But it's usually generally speaking, like humans aren't out to get other humans unless you're just like an evil person. But I think it's just reminding yourself that everyone is trying to do good. My number 12 is not letting myself being stopped by the thought of what could happen if I had started sooner.
Oh, interesting.
I think I always go back to like social media because I had started like around 2021, 2022. Things were going great. And then I had some things in my life where I just stopped completely. And I'm always like, man, like if I would have kept posting, like I would be at my goals. I would be where I want to be with this area of my life. And I think it stops me from still progressing forward because I'm like, oh man, like I should have done this. Even with like a podcast, like, oh, I should have started a podcast 5 years ago when they were blowing up and now I would have like a successful brand with it. No, like just start. Like what?
I did start a podcast 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a progressive thing. And like if you are truly passionate about it, start it.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You don't have to like fit in a timeline or like, I don't know, have everything work in that way. Like just start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, okay, what if 5 years ago you didn't have what you needed that you now have?
Yeah, that's a good thought too.
Like even with this podcast, I've tried it twice before. I had a previous co-host when I first did it. I did it alone and neither one of those worked. And now here we are and I feel like we're going to do this forever.
Same. Yeah,
Truly.
I wouldn't be the person I am today on this mic 2 years ago.
Gosh,
like
no.
I would be probably out here giving the most terrible advice, being an awful person, not saying like that I'm out here speaking God's truth and like literally perfect. But yeah. Yeah, we don't want to hear what I had to say 2 years ago.
Me 2 years ago this week, I just got the Snapchat memories and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. We've
You don't want advice from that girl.
No. I want to hug that girl, but I don't need to listen to what she's going to tell me.
I would not subscribe to that life, to that drama.
No.
Oh, good Lord.
Nope.
Crazy. Okay, so my number 7 and I can't do math. Guys, I told you if we start trying to do it.
No, that's
what are we on?
This is 13.
13? Okay.
I don't think it's your number 7.
It's my number 7.
How is it 13 then?
Because yours will be 14. 7 plus 7 is 14.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Oh my gosh.
So my number 7, our overall 13, switching gears a little bit, is investing in education is one of the best uses of your money. I feel like college has made that seem like it's a joke because college is such an investment of money. And truly, I think a lot of things that you can learn in school, let's leave some of those out. Like that are the outliers. But I think most of what you can learn in school, you can literally learn online half the time. But I also think, like now I told you guys, like I'm back in school to be a health coach. There's so much noise on the internet. It's so great that we have education outside of traditional schooling, but now there's so much information and there's so much misinformation. And it's hard to know what actually is factual when it's just being spewed online. But there are certain programs, there are certain people who are experts, and both you and I have like invested in education. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, not everyone needs to go to college, and a lot of things you can learn online, like you said. But we've almost like spun the complete opposite way and just took what is on the internet as fact for everything and lost the art of like learning from somebody who's an expert.
And now everyone's an expert too. Like,
exactly.
How many digital guides are there on Instagram? How many people are selling these courses? And half the time, I'm going to go on a little course tangent for a second. Half the time, these people selling courses are only making the 6 figures that they're bragging about making because they're selling the course on how to make 6 figures.
Exactly.
I shame on it because I wish I could do it. I can't lie to save my life.
Yeah.
I could literally not sit on there and be like, I'm making 6 figures from starting this business. But in reality, their business is telling you to start a business. Anyways.
Right. Yeah. It's like the modern day, like MLM.
I was about to say it's a modern day pyramid scheme entirely.
Yep. Okay. Number 14 is to stop telling myself who I am. And you're probably like, what? Excuse me. Like this goes back on everything. But I mean it in the way of, I'll just like say my example. I had took like a personality test and it was like, oh, it was the Enneagram. It was like, you're a 2, you're the helper. And with that, it was like, oh, I'm like an introvert. And like in high school, I was the more quiet one, like never really outgoing, never really the one to like start up things. And I've changed a lot, but like in the back of my head, I'm like, no, I'm an introvert. Like I can't do that. Like I'm the quiet girl. And I've changed. I'm just not anymore. I don't even know if I was back then. Maybe it was just like an insecurity and I wasn't truly letting myself shine. But I need to stop like telling myself and like putting myself in a box. And I do the same thing with like, oh, I just love chaos. Like, no, you don't. You've just like trained yourself to think that. And like, I just want to stop telling myself who I am because I'm an evolving person and I can change if I want to.
The personality tests are great until they're not.
Exactly.
Like it's really great to feel seen in that way. But also, I think especially in the Enneagram, looking at those numbers that it points to in the strength and being like, okay, it's actually okay for me to go elsewhere. Yeah. When I told you I was a 1 and I was like, oh, I'm super this. You're like, no, you're not.
I know. I was like, wait, what?
Like, what do you mean? You're not that. Me, a couple years ago, when I boxed myself in, I did the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. I am this way. I am a perfectionist. I need to be this. And at my core, I still 100% am. Every single breakup I've gone through somehow comes back to like the rooted of me being a perfectionist. Unfortunately, it's so true. But now I am a lot more of a type 7, who's who I go to in my strength. I decided to chase after that instead of chasing after the need to be perfect.
Right.
So I said, okay, a perfectionist would never book a flight to Guatemala and hike a volcano not knowing anyone.
Never.
With 1 week just ahead of time. Okay, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I challenged who I thought I was, which I would recommend literally anyone do that. Like that is probably one of the best pieces of advice I could give to someone. If you think you know who you are, challenge that.
Mm-hmm. Even like your likes and dislikes. Like I've heard people be like, oh, I don't like to do cardio. Okay, how do you know that? Like, what experience have you had? I don't like to work out. What do you mean you don't like to? Like, have you tried it? Like, have you challenged yourself? Like, maybe you do like this kind of form of workout. Like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the times we're just like, oh, I tried something once, or like, I told myself I was this way once, and that's who I am for the rest of my life.
It is so true, though. So many people do that. They completely box themselves in saying, I am this way. I don't like those things. Especially like the older you get. Gosh, in dating, I've dated guys who are like, I just don't like those things. Sorry.
Yeah. Like, what? Why? I want to be constantly evolving. And like, I know I want that. So why am I putting myself in a box?
Right. Like, I'll try anything once.
Yeah.
Within reason.
Within reason. Yeah.
Within reason.
Definitely. Don't get the wrong idea.
Oh, my number 8 is like your number 3. So this is number 15. It is working with others is for some people and not others. I think a lot of people tell you, don't go to business with your best friend. Granted, we hardly knew each other when we like first started this, but here we are now. I think some people are really good at working with others. Other people are not. I love working with others. I will be more successful in a business if I'm doing it with other people 9.9 times out of 10.
I'm learning that. I think I've had a few scenarios where it went the opposite direction for me and I thought I could do it and it just wasn't a dynamic. The dynamic was not right and it caused me to lose relationships that I really valued, which is awful. But I think I'm learning I'm the opposite. Like I need that like support.
Support and accountability.
Say, like, yeah, I always say the thing I miss most about bedside nursing is like going into work, clocking in, and like it's almost like when you play a high school sport and you're going through Hell Week and you're just like with it, like you're just grinding and like you're going through it and you have like your coworkers or your teammates to be like dang, this sucks, but like we're kind of going through it together, so it's kind of fun in a way. I miss that working alone because every job I have is essentially like my own business, so it's working alone. And so I think I'm coming around doing these kind of things with you. I'm like, wow, like this is amazing.
Right.
Like, I love it.
Right. It's a really nice dynamic because we both work completely alone in our like separate actual lines of work. And then we come in here and we're like, oh my gosh, thank goodness I have someone to like talk to and do this area of life with. I was going to say work. Maybe it'll eventually be work.
Literally.
Subscribe.
I agree. My number 9, so number
18.
18.
You just have times it by 2.
Okay. Wow. I don't even understand that. But so it is. Healing isn't always doing, it's undoing. And I think I'm learning this. Again, like I keep saying, I'm learning this kind of in the present moment, but I am such a doer and such a go out and fix it. And sometimes it's just kind of letting go of that idea. It kind of goes hand in hand with like control the controllables. Like I don't have to go out and like change everything about my life and like do all these things and like take action right away. Sometimes to heal first, you need to sit in it and then go out and do those things.
Yeah. I entirely agree.
There's like seasons for life. And I think sometimes it's go, go, go and do. And sometimes it's sit and heal, whether that's like a week or 2 months. But I think it's like choosing when to do that.
And that goes back to the idea of rest. Like we can't just immediately move on from something and just be like, all right, cool, I'm good. Because you're going to have to deal with it in 2 years if you don't deal with it now.
Exactly. I've had that happen.
I have too. So many times. It's like just deal with it now. Let yourself feel those emotions now. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Genuinely so okay. Anyways, my number 9, we're going to stop doing math now. And you're going to get both of us to 12 and put the math together. That is 24. Congratulations. My number 9 is when something scary happens to you, go do something that scares you. This is my favorite reel I've ever posted. After I went through a breakup last February, I booked a flight to Guatemala for a week by myself. It was the first ever solo trip I've ever been on. I went and hiked an active volcano completely by myself because I have never been, that's not true. I've been terrified in a breakup before, like after the breakup of what the heck am I doing with my life? But going through a breakup and you're mid-20s as someone who did want to get married young, like felt so terrifying. And it was the first breakup I'd gone through besides the like long-term breakup, which obviously we all know how that one went for me. And I just felt terrified of life and was like, how am I supposed to move forward? It just like felt like such a punch in the stomach after I was like, okay, I'm finally ready to have a boyfriend again after 2 years of not. And I was so scared.
Yeah.
And instead of just sitting in that fear, I wanted to teach my fear about, I made the comment, was like, I want to teach my fear about my God, but I want to teach my fear about what's the opposite of fear?
Like boldness?
I guess. Yeah. Yeah. I essentially want to teach the fear and the anxiety creeping in my life that it had no right in my life.
I love that.
And doing something that scared me more than what I was going through did that perfectly.
Yeah. That's good advice. I love that.
My family, like we have a long history of anxiety running in my family. And I've always known that. Like the second I figured out what anxiety was when I was in college, honestly, I knew that was a like innate fear I had in myself. Like I am super anxious at my core, and I decided I did not want to live that way. So I said, I'm going to go and do things that are genuinely terrifying to me. So then when I'm 40 years old and I'm like, oh, I'm scared of this, I can look back and be like, I hiked a volcano, an active volcano when I was in my 20s, and I'm afraid of this random thing. No, I'm not. I lived abroad in my 20s. I'm afraid of this next thing. No, I'm not.
Yeah. You're like almost expanding your threshold of what you can handle.
100%.
I love that. You're inspiring me.
Thank you.
Like I've always said that I don't want to do a solo trip because I'm like, I would just enjoy it more if I was with people. But I'm kind of through this conversation right now wondering if it's maybe the thing I need the most.
If you would enjoy it more, I would enjoy it more with people.
Yeah.
I did my day 3 of my solo trip. I wanted to cry and like book a flight home.
Yeah. I feel like that's how I'm like, oh, it's not worth it. It's like, I feel like when people are like, oh, I'm solo traveling, they're doing it for themselves. And it's almost like they want to do it. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. But maybe it's because it's the thing I need to do.
Mm-hmm. Probably. I didn't want to do it. I would try to find people to go with me. And I was like, I feel like I need to go. Day 3 of my solo trip, you meet people too. So you're around people pretty much the entire time. But my 3rd day, I was just like, I need to sit with myself. I did not speak English the entire day.
That's crazy.
It was like the Sunday before Easter. And I just sat in the reality that was my life that day and had to feel every emotion. And it was the best time ever. And then did that volcano hike and basically downloaded like 5 songs. Just repeated those 5 songs over and over again. And everyone around me was speaking a different language.
Wow.
So
I'm having like a full like realization right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like actually.
If you want my Guatemala itinerary, it's perfect.
No, literally. I'm like.
I loved it there. I think Guatemala is one of the best places for a solo trip too.
Yeah.
Even though people are like, it's dangerous. I'm like, people were so nice there.
No, I've never traveled anywhere and felt danger. Danger. I'll go down to Miami and be scared for my life. Like the US is, I don't want to go on that tangent, but do your own research.
We could.
And yeah, anyways, I won't go there. My number 9.
Sure.
Because I started and that was your number 8.
That was my number 9.
So my number 10.
Correct, I think.
My number 10 is sometimes your triggers are your teachers. And I've actually learned this like through my ex. And sometimes like when things would happen, I would be triggered by it. And since I'm older now and a little more wiser, I was able to like flip it and be like, okay, why am I like that? Let's like look inward. Is this actually something that's being like harmful in the relationship or with me? Or is it just because I'm triggered by it and I need to be taught something like through this? And so I feel like sometimes it's just about looking inward and assessing if it's really a problem or not. And if it is, then move forward and fix it. But like just kind of having that mindset of like, okay, maybe this is trying to like teach me something even more and help me learn something more about myself.
I feel like that's a really good way to help your brain not spiral so much too.
Yeah.
Because it's like once you're triggered by something, it's like, okay, I'm going to keep going with that. And
100%.
But being like, okay, I'm going to bring myself back to where's the root of this?
Mm-hmm. Like
you're
stopping it right there.
It changes your crazy mind to think a little more logical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I'm a spiraler. Let me tell you, I can spiral.
Me too. My number 10 is you're allowed to be proud of yourself even in the midst of failure.
Yes.
I don't like this one.
I don't
Like
like
I
it
said,
either. You're
I'm a perfectionist, so I don't like this one at all. But I think I made a point. I was like listening back to our breakup episode of the podcast, and I said something of like, oh, well, I'm really proud of myself that I was able to love that deeply again. And I just kind of like sat in that for a second and was like, you know what? I like actually genuinely am. That relationship failed, and I could totally write it off and be like, oh, how dare that? Like, I failed in that. But also, there was success in that too.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the trend right now that is to like the song Messy being like, here's all my failures from the year.
Yes, I have something very similar. I'll go into it,
I genuinely love the idea of that because every single business person I've listened to speak and everyone who's quote unquote made it in life speaks of their failures and how much they learned more through their failures than they did their successes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what our 20s are about, but we glaze over that because of social media. We think everything needs to be the highlight reel. Our whole life needs to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, it's like we learn more through the failures.
Oh, 100%.
And again, we just label it as a failure. We don't see the good that came out of it. And we don't see like, hey, I can actually be proud of myself for something that happened in the midst of that failure.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree. I love that.
Thanks.
My kind of one that goes along with it, it's not necessarily failures, but it's small wins are still wins.
Mhm.
And there's also a trend right now going around like, oh, what did I do this year? And it's like,
Yep.
oh, I did this, this, and this. Like you might see them as small things, but they're huge. And also I feel like I do this. I will set goals and I'm like, wow, that's a huge thing. And then as my capacity grows for what I can do, they become small things.
Mm-hmm.
Like traveling to a new country. That was like my biggest goal like 3 years ago. I traveled to a new country for 3 weeks this year. And I kind of wrote it off like, oh, okay, cool. When before that would have like made me ecstatic. Like, oh my gosh, like I got to see something like I've always wanted to see. And now it's just like, oh yeah, like I did go on this trip. But like, no, that's huge. Like, what? Why am I diminishing that? And I think that also comes from culture sometimes because we always are wanting bigger and better and we're seeing the next person do this crazy thing and it makes our wants and passions and goals feel less than. And that's just not fair. Like if you wanted it before and you got it, celebrate it.
But then you like hang around family, friends or something and they're like, oh my gosh, you did this and this and this and this and this. And you're like, oh my gosh, you're right.
Yeah. Literally by making this list, I had to go through my camera roll to kind of like remind me of how the whole year went. And I was like, whoa. Like I did so many things that were on my list for last year that I wanted to do that I didn't even realize. Like getting my real estate license. I've had that on my list for like 3 years and I did it and had my first sale. Like, why am I looking at this year like, didn't really do anything? Like, what?
There's so much to be proud of yourself for the year.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Ew, my number 11 is the empath in me. Never apologize for how deeply you feel.
I had one very similar like that.
I hate that one too. Literally hate it because I get kicked. I keep saying kicked and now I think you think I'm like actually been kicked.
I know. I'm like why are you talking about what?
My bad.
I giggled when I listened back to that part on last week's or 2 weeks ago's episode.
Like, oops, my bad. Just a form of saying.
I get it now. Yeah, I get it now.
But I feel like so many times, like friends will be in conversations and they almost get frustrated with me for how deeply I'm feeling things. And it does sometimes make me do things I wish I wouldn't do. But I don't know, like also it has been the downfall of a lot of relationships in my life too, because I do feel things really deeply. And yes, that means I have some low lows, but that also means I have some really high highs. And
exactly.
In the same way that I will get sad over something, I'll get happy over things that people wouldn't think twice about.
Yes.
Like I will see a random person on the street and just smile at them. And I remember 2 years ago living in Oxford, I would start to like realize that about myself and I would love that about myself. And I always told myself that I will never marry someone who doesn't see that in me and like celebrate that. And I would just remember sitting, smiling at children and smiling at families and just being like, this is so cool. And I would just have the biggest smile on my face. And you see all those movies where it's like the guy staring at the girl who's just like happy over life. And I'm like, I need someone in my life who holds that character more than anything.
Yeah.
Who doesn't see my empathetic, is that the right word?
Empathy.
Who doesn't see my empathy as a downfall, but sees it as something to be celebrated.
Oh, 100%. That is my favorite idea right now. And I think I've said this, like, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, but we are so lucky to feel so deeply, especially when you're sad or feel hurt, because that means that we can feel like so good and get so happy over like the most mundane things in life. And like I relate it to the breakup, like, oh, I can be glad that I missed someone so much because it means that someone meant so much in my life. And like some people go through life literally never getting that.
Right.
And feeling numb. Like I don't want to feel numb. I can even say that like I'm sad right now, but I wouldn't trade it for the world because I know life is a roller coaster and it goes up and down, and sooner than later I will feel so happy again. And I crave that.
Yeah.
I love that idea. You said it very well. My
last one is you won't find full alignment until your body, soul, and spirit are all made a priority. I've touched on this before, and I actually touched on it in an episode that we were guests on, but I had my faith really great a year ago, but I could not go out and actually act on my faith because my health was in such a bad place. And I think sometimes people will prioritize one of those things. They'll focus a ton on their body and be like, okay, I need to focus on this, but they're not actually caring about what's going on in their brain. Or they'll pour everything into their faith, but then they won't take care of their health, so they can't walk and actually share the gospel. And it's like you need to align every single thing. And honestly, like that's the key to success in life. Like genuinely, if your body, soul, and spirit are aligned and they're all made to be a priority, you're going to live a full life.
Yeah, I fully agree. I love that. I love that that's like our motto for the podcast too, because it ties into everything, and health and wellness isn't just one thing.
Yeah.
It's all of them combined.
Right. I sometimes feel like I need to niche down more on social media and like fit into one of those areas of like, okay, I need to just focus on travel. I need to just focus on health. But at the end of the day, if I'm telling everyone like, let's just focus on health, I'm doing them such a disservice.
There's so much more to life.
Right. Instead, my audience or my platform is all about body, soul, and spirit. And it's like, you need every single piece of that. And yeah, my content might not hit the explore page as well because it's not niching down into one area or another, but I'm giving you all the pieces. I'm not just giving you one piece, because if I just give you one piece, I'm doing my audience such a disservice.
Yeah. Agreed. I don't think I said my last one.
Okay, go for
it.
I
don't know if I went first. I don't know. Maybe I said one too many. You're getting 25. But my last one is we are on borrowed time. And I think I've had I've had a few like punch in the face reality checks of that being true. I mean, the biggest one was like when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, I was like, oh yeah, life is so short. What are we doing here? What's going on? Like, it really put it into perspective. But I think it just, the theme like keeps carrying on in my life of like, this life is so short. We're living to be in an eternity, and that's really all that matters. And I think you can look at life almost being like, okay, yeah, it's not that serious. It's not that deep, because we are just like on this small timeline. We don't know how much time we have. And the whole goal of this life is to live eternity. And so, yeah, tomorrow could end. But if you're not doing the things right for your body, soul, and spirit, then it doesn't really matter.
Right. Like literally, what's the point?
Yeah.
You know, I agree. I feel like that's a good thing to end on entirely.
Boom, bam.
Boom.
Boom, bam. Ugh, I'm disgusted with myself.
That's hilarious. Guys, we won't talk to you until the new year.
Which is tomorrow.
Until 2025. We'll be back.
That's crazy.
Chatting with you in 2025. I hope you guys all have such a happy and safe New Year's Eve. Please stay safe. Please stay safe out there tonight. Scary world.
Take all your precautions, but have fun and celebrate.
Yes. Have a great New Year's. We will chat with you next week. Next year.
Next year.
That's wild. All right. We love you guys.
Let's chat soon.
Bye.
Bye.